Good morning. I'm announcing the extension of a shelter-in-place order with extensive modifications. The previous order was set to expire at midnight on May 6th. This order extends until May 31st, but more importantly, it also provides for an innovative process to safely phase the reopening of businesses that were forced to close in March in ways that maximize the safety of our employees, customers, and the public health of our community. Let me remind everyone that we simply, let me remind everyone that if we simply let the existing order expire, the state order would still be in place, with Fresno losing our local control and facing much more restrictions. By all indications I have seen, the people of Fresno are doing an excellent job of sheltering in place and social distancing and are flattening the curve, but I recognize that patience is running thin. People want to get back to work and businesses want to open their doors. Our new order is titled Modified and Extended Shelter in Place for a Safer Community, including requiring protective facial coverings and plans for phased reopening of businesses. The city will now require you to wear a protective facial covering such as a non-surgical cloth, scarf, bandana, or other inventive coverings. This requirement will protect the health of the customers and the employees when you're out in public. Our plan to reopen businesses that are currently closed will be in phases based on public health data that will be monitored based on public health indicators. My goal is for everyone to feel safe when you go out in public. The first phases of reopening will be those businesses that are considered low and lower risk for increasing the spread of COVID-19. My Fresno Recovery Committee will make recommendations to the city manager, who will then review and evaluate those recommendations in concert with the City Council and her emergency management team. Those committee recommendations may include special social distancing measures in addition to those already required in order to make sure employees and customers are protected to the maximum extent possible. We're developing a certification process that will have trained specialists in code enforcement to visit businesses in each wave, help them design suitable and safe social distancing practices to protect their employees and their customers. The city manager will then announce the time and date of those authorized businesses may reopen. We'll reevaluate each phase of reopening after the initial 2 weeks to measure if there are any impacts on public health indicators. If the indicators worsen, we may roll back things. If the indicators are improved, we will roll out the next phase of reopening. This innovative phased process will, over time, bring back thousands of people to work, restore closed businesses, and start the economic rebuilding of our economy. My plan is to accomplish these reopenings as quickly as possible to get people back to work and businesses open while keeping our community safe and healthy. We can expect more announcements and business openings over the next week. I appreciate the sacrifices that our residents and business owners have made during these challenging and uncertain times. We are still navigating uncharted waters. I believe we have a safe and sensible process to rebuild our economy, get back to work, and start restoring our normal lives. And finally, even though we've extended our stay-in-place order to May 31st, we will still monitor our situation daily. And as indicators move in the right direction, we will make further and perhaps more dramatic modifications to our order to get our economy back on track and to get people back to work. With that, I'll say thank you, and I'll take your questions now.
Oh, and I unmuted. Hi, Mayor. This is Medeiros from KC24. I was wondering, has there been discussion about which businesses could be phased in first, and how is that decision being made?
Well, this is a good question. This is a really out-of-the-box, innovative solution. Right now, there's essential businesses and non-essential. Of course, essential can operate, non-essential can't. What this does is create basically a third classification called authorized businesses. So we review categories of business. It's not one single. It could be under furniture stores, could be under clothing stores. My committee, the subcommittee of business committee for the Fresno Recovery Committee, will review these applications based on industry type. So let's say they're reviewing clothing stores. Once we get that approved, it goes to the city manager, goes to me, then we approve it. Then individual businesses can apply. And basically, it kind of levels the playing field, because right now you've got the big box stores like Walmart and Target and Costco, and you have specialty stores that really can't open because all they have is one item. So they'll have an opportunity to compete with the big box stores. They will have to have the same scrutiny that they do, all the standard mitigation measures, having 6-foot distances, having protective plexiglass between the employee and the customer, having the sterilization, so on and so forth. So the same scrutiny. And the most important part, we have to ensure that whatever we do is done in a safe, methodical manner, and that mitigation measures to assure the public that it's safe. It's a gate for thousands of employees to come back to work, hundreds of businesses to reopen, and making a major step in rebuilding the Fresno economy.
Mayor, it's David Taub with GV Wire. If you could just clarify the mandatory mask order, and then how does that apply to people who may have medical complications where it may not be recommended they wear masks?
Okay, the mask will be basically, if you're walking your dog down the street, we're not going to give you a ticket. If you go into a store, most stores now are starting to require this anyway. So we want to protect the employees of the store as well as the people that go in the store, the customers. A lot of cities and a lot of countries right now are doing the same thing. All these are subject to modification, David. So as conditions change, hopefully for the better, we'll adjust our order. And if it's not needed in the future, it'll be taken back. Right now, we want to do the most things we can do now to make sure people are safe. Particularly if we open a lot of new businesses, we want to make sure both the employees and the customers are safe.
Speaking to that, I was wondering if people do not wear masks, is there now in this shelter-in-place update, is there a consequence or a ticket, or what could be the consequence for that?
Well, the practical consequence, if you want to go into a store like a Costco and they require a mask, you don't have a mask, you won't get in the store. We're not asking people to drive with their mask. It's when they get in contact with other people. That's the primary goal. I don't believe anybody's going to get a ticket, but again, the main consequence is lack of entry. And again, we have to protect the employees of the supermarkets and all the other places we go to on a regular basis.
Hi, Mayor Brand. So in that case, it's not as if, so it's more like if you're conducting essential business, you will need to be wearing a mask?
Well, let's say you're going to work, you have an essential, like in your case, you go to work,
Sure.
you have to wear the mask at work, okay? If you go during the daytime or stop by Costco on the way home, you're gonna have to wear the mask to go into Costco. You stop by a pharmacy or a supermarket, same thing. Again, if you're walking your dog or jogging, you're by yourself, I don't think anybody's gonna say anything. I'd recommend that people keep them on them, but it's mainly a safety measure. We're not gonna try to strong arm people. We're just trying to keep people safe.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor. We have a question for you.
Yes.
On May 7th, what exactly is going to be reopened? Do you have any plans to reopen golf courses, car dealerships, any of those?
We will make an announcement next week on the types of industries. Again, it's not going to be by business. It'll be by category. So golf courses would affect all golf courses. If it's car dealers, it would affect all car dealers that follow compliance. But there'll be some announcements beginning as early as today. So they'll probably start later this afternoon, and you're going to see more coming over the next week and the incoming weeks. We're trying to move as fast as we safely can and get people back to work, and also have amenities for people to go to that are sheltered at home and are getting bored and they want to go and do something recreationally. We understand that.
Hi, Mayor. This is Brianna from the Bee. So my question is just how do we get these businesses up to speed on kind of the new measures in place? And I guess, is there going to be like any support for them? How is that going to work?
Okay, I'll use an example. Let's say the recovery committee reviews auto dealerships, for example, and they're reviewing as a generic classification, and they bring it back to city manager. It goes to the council for review. It goes to my office for review. City manager makes a determination that this can go back, and they determine the mitigation measures. Okay, so we'll have city staff that once we approve that classification, people in that classification can apply to the city. We believe we have the capability to go over 1,000 to 1,500 per week, and if we have to, we can hire more people with the care funds we got from the federal government to hire people. But every business, once they're decided they want to open, we're going to have to do the same mitigation measures that we probably have out there right now. So whatever you see going into a Costco or a Target, you're going to see half capacity. You're going to see people 6 feet apart and masks and so on. These new stores will have the same exact, not the same exact, but similar standards. So again, it's important we assure the public that everything we're doing is done in a safe manner.
Hello, Mayor. It's Skip Essick from One Putt Broadcasting. How are you?
Good to talk to you, Skip.
Got a question for you. A lot of restaurants are chomping at the bit to open. How are they going to navigate through this extension?
Well, this new authorized business has basically 3 categories, 1, 2, and 3, starting with the low risk first. So restaurants, right now, we're trying to do everything we can in our committee. We have restaurant people in there to develop the protocols for, so hopefully in the coming weeks, and I don't know, I'm just guessing, but I would hope sooner than later that we develop the protocols for any restaurant to follow, whether it's being half your capacity on the seating, having people wearing masks, disinfectants, disposable menus. Those are all being reviewed right now, because what we want to do when it comes time for restaurants to open up in California, that all the people in Fresno have already been on track. They know what they have to do. They can prepare. You can't just switch on and off. They need time to gear up, order food, get employees back to work. And I'll be sending a copy of this new order that is innovative, in certain respects challenging the state. My request to the governor's office will be use this as a model to open up business in California in a safe way, including restaurants. And there's a way, the other states are doing it right now. Right now, California has a prohibition on dining. I want to make sure that's removed. There's several restaurants that need to get back on track. It's a major part of our economy, a major part of our sales tax dollars with the city. And even to do that, we've got to make people safe. They want to feel safe to go back to restaurants. But that message will be conveyed to the governor's office.
Speaking about, how these businesses should be preparing, I know a lot of places, they're saying you have to have these protocols in place. So can you speak to how important it is that they have a plan in place for when they do reopen, especially with those social distancing, and then how you guys will ensure that they are taking those social distancing requirements and doing those at their business? Will it be code enforcement that will go around, or the health department that will go around to make sure that they have those protocols in place?
Yeah, well, one final thing I forgot to mention, almost everything we do will have a component, probably towards the end, where the health department is going to review the mitigation measures we've set up. We want the health department to, with their approval, so we make sure we've done all the steps. But again, once a category has been selected, then there's a process, and people are then applying within that category, using, let's say, use restaurants. I want city staff, probably code enforcement, or we can hire additional people to go out to these businesses and set them up and show them exactly what they have to do. And the plan is when they're introduced, there's a 2-week basically review period. So they come out in 2 weeks, we'll come back out, take a look at their store. If everything's on track, we move forward, go to the next wave. If not, we make adjustments. So you've heard the old dimmer switch, analogy. And that's, you know, we've built the entire electrical circuitry here at the city of Fresno to really modulate changes up or down. For example, if we open a lot of businesses, and let's say there's a spike, there's a reduction, dramatic reduction, let's use that scenario, in infections, then I will look at even lifting more requirements based on the level of risk and the mitigation measures and what the data is showing. So I think we've got a pretty good model, an innovative model that, again, takes public safety into consideration and has the capability to make a huge difference in bringing thousands of people in Fresno back to employment.
This is Libertad with Univision, Mayor. My question is, can you go a little bit more in deep about what are the measures that the businesses that will be reopened have to follow for the social distancing? What are these new measures?
I'll start with like a retail type business. If you look at what you do right now when you go into Costco, when you go into Save Mart or a farm, you're going to see like an occupancy of 100 people. They're going to have to take half of that. You probably have to have somebody at the door if it's full to let people in and out. And, you know, there'll be a barrier with the cashier and the employees. People will be required to wear masks, both the customers and the employees. So again, is what you're seeing right now, they're probably going to have basically the same standards. It'll change from category to category.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify, Mayor Brand, how's the low risk business categories, the businesses, the types of businesses that can apply to reopen first, has that already been determined, or is that yet to be determined?
In the process. We've been working on a lot of stuff for a long time. So that one is one of them. So that is in progress and should be ready shortly. And basically, the measures are going to be the level of activity, how many contacts you have a day. If the business where you're in close contact, you know, like a barber, beautician, they're probably in category 3. But the goal is to get them starting with 1, and over the next few months, I want to get everybody, as much as I can, you know, legally do, as much as I can safely do, is get people back to work, including, you know, hairdresser. My father was a barber, so I have sympathy for those independent people that are suffering. They have no income coming in. And there's in so many classifications, but there's got to be a starting point. This is a starting point. This is pressing the envelope quite a bit. This is, in a sense, challenging Sacramento. But I think it's time that for the city of Fresno and the state of California, to start moving and recovering our economy. At the same time, making sure everybody is safe and we're tracking all the data.
So Mayor, just to make clarification, businesses who are interested in reopening will need to fill out a specific application. The city will go through and make sure they have a safety plan, approve it, and then do you have the staff for that?
I've been told that we can do up to over 1,000 per week. And if we need more, we have a lot of money from the CARES grant from the federal government to pay for additional inspectors. So it's not necessarily an application, it's mainly they're going to submit a plan. We'll advise them on a plan. They can call. We're going to help them come forward. So if somebody calls and says, what do I need to do? We want to send somebody out to their store to look at it, to give them detailed instructions on how to open, and then we'll start. That's how the process starts. And again, the ones that are considered lowest risk will have the easiest entry at first and hopefully come in waves. And again, everyone comes through with a 2-week trial period to make sure that that store is complying with the standards that we set up.
Mayor, thanks again. That's David Taub with GV Wire. Thanks for letting us ask you some questions here. Just want to circle back to the mask thing for my first question. How does this apply to maybe children or people who are immunocompromised, people who may have asthma, people who may have anxiety issues? Will it still apply to them, or how does it apply to people who've already had coronavirus and are now free of it?
Well, that's a good question, and a lot of that is a medical question because part of our deal with the state's guidelines is having the capability to take care of 65 and older, our most vulnerable citizens. So that's something I can't give you a specific answer on, David. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. A lot of it will be that we've consulted with the Fresno County Health, with local health providers. We're getting our advice from the medical experts. So when those come up, we'll take them one at a time.
Hi, Mayor. It's Brianna again. I'm sorry if I missed this, but in May, the shelter-in-place order is extended until May. In May, we have a couple of holidays. We have Mother's Day and Memorial Day, I think it is. And so I know for Easter, the city closed the parks. I guess, you know, with businesses doing kind of this soft reopening, but the shelter-in-place extended, how is that going to work with those holidays?
Well, we're going to reevaluate those. That's a couple of weeks down the road. And we're hoping that all the data, people who are safely practicing shelter in place. So when we get to that point in time, it's going to be a call based on where we think we have to go. If we think we can safely open parks, we'll do it. If we think it's too early to open parks, we may just, like we did over Easter on Mother's Day weekend and probably Memorial Day weekend, we may just shut the parks down. We may just do the regional parks for the weekend only, but that decision is not to be made yet.
One thing that I've talked with some people from the health departments as well as just local officials, and they're all saying that to meet the governor's criteria, the 6-point plan, that currently Fresno County doesn't really meet any of those criteria. And so I know the governor has really spoke about there needs to be enough testing, enough contract tracing, and all of this before stuff can be phased in. And so are you concerned at all that because we haven't met those guidelines that this could lead to a spike in cases?
Well, first of all, only a handful of counties, like maybe Mono County or some really remote county, could meet those criteria. I meet on a regular basis with the big 13 mayors. Every other city is in the same state we are. Every city needs additional testing and so on. But as things go by, you don't judge the data strictly on volume. So it's not because we have 500 cases. It's going to be based on, for example, how many hospitalizations out of the number we had. There's different criteria, and we will be consulting the health department and the state on a regular basis. So nobody's going rogue here. But we believe we've already made the decision, for example, on these essential businesses like big box. These other businesses that are going to now, we're leveling the playing field, giving them the opportunity to compete, are going to have to do the same thing. So these are not going to be high volume, high risk types of businesses. And if there's something like a gymnasium that's a little more risky, or probably the one that would be the last to come back would be like a stadium, big events like 1,000 people at Selden Arena or a Bulldog football game. So there's going to be degrees that we go. And I can guarantee you that the other mayors out there are doing the same thing. They're looking at ways to push the governor to reopen because we clearly understand the health risk out there. And I did everything I could to maintain the safety, the shelter in place and so on. But we also have an economy that is crashing around us. And we need to take steps to make sure that that can't go too much further. So this is an attempt to reach a medium, a balance between keeping us safety, opening up certain businesses that we think are low risk, and starting to make a major move in improving our economy and getting hundreds of businesses back online and getting thousands of people with paychecks coming in.
Mayor, it's David Taub with GV Wire again. Can you talk about whether certain recreational activities will be reopened based on the governor's statements yesterday that tennis could be okay, golf could be okay? Will tennis courts be reopened at parks and basketball hoops and golf courses be able to
That'll probably be discussed later today with the city. So we are definitely following the governor's changes on golf courses, tennis, different sports. And those are all things that we support to get people out of their houses, get some exercise, have some fun. And part of an overall thing is get things back to normal. But there's going to be announcements later today and probably next week of different industries getting back on track, different activities being permitted. So, you know, we're coming into the summer months here. Everybody is kind of like worn out on this deal. We understand. So we want to finish strong on this. We don't want to relax our guard. And again, it's like we can modulate this thing one way or another. But the key thing for us too in other cities is to get the testing going. That is a work in progress.
Good morning, Mayor. Again, it's Santaya. What about hospitals, elective surgeries, and surgery centers?
That's something we're reviewing right now. Governor Newsom made an announcement on that. And that is a big part of the economy. And we look at things too when we open them in terms of what's the impact. For example, opening a golf course, that's a recreational opportunity, but maybe a couple hundred employees. Opening up a hospital, elective surgeries, brings a lot of revenues into the hospitals, there's certain hospitals out there right now where the entire floor is vacant. And so like for me, I had my hernia surgery luckily last year. Those are the kind of things that they do. And those are the kind of things that bring in money and get people back to work. So those are important on our list to make sure we can work with the hospital providers and get them back online. And again, under the same conditions that they know that there's an outbreak, they've got to change their course, but we want to get them back on track. It's a lot of money for the city, a lot of money for them. So we'll take 2 more questions after this.
Hey, Mayor Brand, this is Tad Weber. Speak to us about the council criticism that was levied against you this week and whether that factored into the timing of today's announcement.
Absolutely, positively not. Moving our city ahead. And I respect councilmen, they have their rights to an opinion. There's a productive way to go forward and discuss ideas. I choose not to. But I've got a charge, I have a responsibility for the entire city. I have the safety of everybody is in my hands, and I take that seriously. I work with the council, but I have to continue on the path I'm going. And the path I'm going now is trying to balance between keeping us safe and opening our economy. And a lot of the stuff we're talking about, these have been in the planning stage for weeks. We're not just waiting to the last day. One more question?
Brianna. Brianna Calix. Miranda.
Brianna?
Oh, my question was answered. Thank you, though.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thanks everybody for your patience and everything that's going on in the city of Fresno. You're doing your jobs, reporting the news to keep everybody informed.